When the stage is set for Kingdom Come Deliverance, the open-world medieval RPG, it's one of contrasts. The where is the Kingdom of Bohemia, the when in the early 15th century, following the death of its ruler Charles IV in 1378. Though his son, Wenceslaus IV, took the throne, his reign left much to be desired. But the ensuing turmoil feels so distant in the initial flythrough, with rolling hills, dense forests teeming with deer, and quaint villages dotting the landscapes. It's not long before we catch up with Henry, aka Hal, in Silver Skalitz, or Skalitz, a settlement in the Sasau region known for its silver mines. It's fairly wealthy, but the life of Henry isn't one of affluence. His father Martin is a blacksmith and serves as an apprentice. For the most part, Henry seems fairly happy-go-lucky, lazy and unruly on occasion, but otherwise a good person at heart. Unfortunately, the circumstances surrounding Wenceslaus IV would have dire circumstances rippling throughout Bohemia, reaching all the way to Henry's family. When the current king annoyed the remaining nobility with his attitude, including missing his own coronation, they would go to Sigismund. As the king of Hungary and Croatia, he's also Wenceslaus's half-brother, so he carried out a solution that seemingly made the most sense at the time: kidnapping the Wenceslaus to convince, read forcefully at blade point, to abdicate his throne. From there, Sigismund would invade Bohemia, pillaging the former king's territories to consolidate his own power. None of this was known by Henry, his family, or the other villages in Skalitz. Henry and Martin are busy working on a sword for Sir Radzig Kobyla, the hetman of Wenceslaus IV who administrates Skalitz. Given the town's importance and wealth due to its resources, Radzig's position in the current monarchy, and Sigismund's invasion, you could probably guess what happens next. Skalitz is attacked by a Cuman army and subsequently burned to the ground. Sir Markwart von Olitz, who serves as a lieutenant for Sigismund, leads the attack and slays Henry's parents. Henry has no other choice but to run, taking the sword with him. Though he arrived in the village of Talmberg to warn Sir Divish of an impending attack, von Olitz would arrive the next day with his army in tow. Thankfully, Sir Divish convinced him to leave. With his life turned upside down, Henry's first objective was to return to Skalitz and bury his parents. Sadly, life would kick him even further when a group of bandits stole the sword and severely wounded Henry. He would be saved by Teresa, who also saw her family butchered during the Purge of Skalitz, and Sir Robard, who commanded Talmberg City Guard and whose troops helped Henry Talmberg. After burying his parents, Teresa would take Henry to Ratay in the Sasau region and tend to his wounds at her uncle's mill. Ratay is where Henry's journey really begins. Sir Hanush of Lepa serves as its acting lord, with Hans Capon, his nephew, being the true heir. Hanush was also close friends with Radzig to the extent that when the latter survived Skalitz's destruction, he led survivors to Ratay, where the former sheltered them. To ultimately seek revenge for his parents' deaths, Henry wants to join Sir Radzig's service, which ultimately leads him to train with Captain Bernard. He also meets with Hans, who is more arrogant and spoiled due to his noble lineage. Despite a scuffle and their innate differences in society, the two become friends during a hunting trip, sharing their experiences, including the circumstances that led to Henry's arrival in Ratay. When Hans stumbles upon a Cuman camp, it's Henry who ultimately saves him. Not only does this solidify their friendship, but also allows Henry to join Sir Radzig and his envoy. They would eventually set out on a mission in Neuhof, which has seen widespread slaughter, and learned that Runt, the leader of the initial group of bandits who stole the sword, led the raid. Embarking on an investigation to locate his whereabouts, he goes from a stud farm in Neuhof to looking for a man with a limp in Uschitz. He then heads to Ledechko to speak to someone named Riki, and finally ends up at Timi to eventually find Przemysłowicz to find the bandits. Upon arriving at the camp with Sir Radzig and Sir Bernard, they discover Cumans alongside the bandits and begin a bloody battle. Henry eventually finds Runt and they engage in a one-on-one fight. Though the former emerges victorious, slaying Runt in the process, the sword is sadly nowhere to be found. The overall turmoil also affects Henry, leading to a short break as a bailiff in Przemysłowicz, who oversees the reconstruction in the DLC from the ashes. Sometime later, it's revealed that bandit raids are still ongoing. As it turns out, the raids are at the behest of a mysterious individual known as the Chief, using counterfeit coins to organize them. The same person also organized the raid on Neuhof, and after discussing things with Radzig, while pondering on the meaning of life, Henry ventures out to find the Chief's identity. This takes him to Rovna, where he discovers the main counterfeiter, Sir Jezik, with the help of Ulrich of Passau. Henry is pointed to Sasau, where he meets Kozliak, the one who recruited the bandits, and to a monastery to find the remaining bandits from Neuhof. Whether he ultimately kills the latter or not, Henry can obtain his dice as proof and learn of Vranik, where bandits are holed up. Upon consulting with Sir Hanush and Sir Radzig, the latter seemingly reluctant and advising Henry to be careful, he sets out. Upon arriving at the bandits' camp, Henry eventually learns that the chief is Sir Istvan Toth, a nobleman under Sigismund and possesses the sword. Henry is subsequently captured and tortured. Back in the day, Istvan would confer with Radzig, but he eventually betrayed him by not warning of Sigismund's brutal attack on Skalitz. He was also responsible for commanding Runt to find anything remaining in the village. What's he after? Lordship of Sasau. Pledging his loyalty to Sigismund is part of the deal, and he's built up a pretty impressive force in the meanwhile. While outlining his plan, Istvan also reveals that Henry's father is actually Radzig. After he ducks out, Henry escapes confinement and returns to Rattay to prepare for the coming battle alongside the forces of Hanush and Divish. Though Radzig acknowledges that he is indeed Henry's father, their discussion is postponed until Istvan is dealt with. Unfortunately, while their forces are marching to Vranik, it's revealed that Istvan has ventured to Talmberg to seize its castle. Henry, Hanush, Radzig, and Divish break off from their main forces in pursuit, though it's far too late by then. With the castle under his control, Lady Stephanie, Divish's wife, is taken hostage, and Radzig, who went on ahead, is captured. Henry's allies must back off and regroup. He undertakes an infiltration plan with Hans to try and rescue the hostage, which doesn't work out, and the siege subsequently begins. By working with engineer Konrad Kaiser, Henry helps to field a trebuchet to decimate the castle's walls. Eventually, Istvan is let go under the condition of ensuring the safety of Radzig and the hostages. Together with Hans, Henry eventually finds Radzig safe and sound, and Hans sets out to find Toth. This leaves Henry and Radzig together to discuss their relationship. The latter offers more details on Henry's parentage, including that Martin was aware of the truth. Nevertheless, he raised Henry as his own, though Radzig always kept an eye on his son. It's also revealed that Martin was an adventurer, exploring the world and fighting in a war in Poland, which he didn't give much thought to. He also quarreled with someone in Kuttenberg, which happens to be the major city in Kingdom Come Deliverance too, so let's expect that to come into play. While mulling over not retrieving Radzig's sword, the latter admits that it's Henry's now, and while getting it back, taking revenge on von Olitz, and more are noble pursuits, there's more to live for in life. Upon returning to Rattay, Henry speaks to Martin in a dream, who commends him for standing up to evil. He then leaves, reuniting with Henry's mother and seemingly venturing into the afterlife. Of course, the story isn't over yet. Jobst of Moravia arrives in Rattay and proposes an alliance. While the irony of requesting help to fight against Sigismund and ensure Wenceslaus IV is reestablished as king is peak irony given how things started, it is eventually accepted. The next step is for Henry and Hans to venture to Trotsky and speak to Otto von Burgau to gauge whether he is still allied to Sigismund or not. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 picks up directly after and sees Henry continuing on his path, going from upstart to a proper hero. We already know that there are not one but two big maps, the north of Bohemia with its extensive nature and city of Kuttenberg, and the game's Steam listing indicates that a civil war is ongoing. There will be plenty of opportunities to perform chivalrous deeds, but given how much more reactive the world can be, players have more freedom than ever to shape Henry's demeanor. Given everything that occurred in the first game, it's also appropriate he can now engage in blacksmithing, following Martin's legacy while forging his own path. A confrontation with Sigismund is still up in the air, but it seems a given that Henry will go up against von Olitz in battle. As for the original, it's interesting to behold. Though it received crowdfunding in 2014 and launched in 2018, development stretched even further back though with a prototype in 2012. It didn't necessarily have the largest development team, especially compared to today's AAA endeavors, let alone the sequel, but its narrative, characterization, presentation, and world building are still very impressive. Despite numerous bugs and launch issues, Kingdom Come Deliverance sold more than 8 million units as of November of 2024. If nothing else, it proved there's an audience for medieval action RPGs with rich narratives. The journey of Henry is all the more impressive in retrospect because of what he didn't achieve. He hadn't yet accomplished his goals of slaying Von Olitz or recovering the sword, and yet his deeds and intentions rang true. It's a testament to the fact that heroic tales aren't just about the big deeds, but everything else along the way that builds character and ultimately shapes one's destiny. There are also themes of beyond knighthood and serving the nobility, with Henry receiving multiple lessons on how the latter should act and the importance of a noble's word. The enjoyment of life, as opposed to the single-minded pursuit of revenge, also seemingly plays into enjoying the journey and life for all that it has to offer, rather than focusing on the destination. Whether that plays into his future, perhaps as he becomes a lord, remains to be seen. As it stands, however, Kingdom Come Deliverance is only the first leg of his journey, and we're eagerly awaiting the full sprint that the sequel has to offer when it launches on February 4th for Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC. Hey, did you know that we at GamingBolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.